Pull! Hey, it's break time. Taking a Break is sponsored by our good friends up at Banks Boats. What is taking a break? Well, I guess I'd have to say it's everything else that I enjoy about our sport of waterfowl. It's all about the ducks, the dogs, and the decoys. Let's check it out. Jason, this thing has been to the West Coast twice, I know. And I think the last time I tried to take this thing apart and clean it was here on this bench. And it's got to be, I bet you it was September of our first trip out west. So if you want to do your magic to it, take a look at it. Let's break it apart, see what you think. I know I was very concerned last time about the spring up in there. I think it was kind of dirty and a little corroded. I can say that G96, I think, has saved my gun career because, man, all I ever do is just spray that stuff on that or my over and under. That's pretty much all I do to it. And I mean, you can kind of even see there a little bit, there's a little bit of, with the salt water that with the guiding that I do and some of the places that we've been, I don't, some things I take good care of, but maybe my guns I don't. So, okay. What's your thoughts?
Well, if G96 has worked for you, we'll stick with that. You can see on your bolt face there, not the bolt face, but where the injection port is, and the bolt slides. You see you got some surface rust that may or may not come out. The tarnish there to the finish isn't going to come out, but we can at least get the rust off. But we'll probably do what we call a detail strip. We'll strip it right down to where we can as far as the manufacturer wants us to go. Benelli is pretty...
is that what this is?
Yes, that's Benelli.
It's been so long since I had it, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, Benelli's lets you go pretty far in taking down the gun itself. And that includes the bolt and all the inner workings. What we won't take apart is the trigger mechanism. We'll keep that all intact, but we'll give it a good scrub and a blowout. We've got everything here that I think we're going to need. Air is something I like to use a lot. If I don't have it, I don't have it. I'll get around it. I use what I can, but to scrub it down good and blow it out, that'll get all the sand and from east coast to west coast right out of it. So first thing I like to do is just make sure the gun's clear. Keep my finger off the trigger, point the muzzle in a safe direction, and I physically inspect, and then I take it down from there. We've confirmed that the gun's clear, so we'll just start taking it apart. I like to make sure the action's forward, and start by taking the barrel and the fore end off. We'll take the trigger mechanism out. There's just one simple pin that goes through the receiver, and I like to use something underneath the gun if I'm going to take those pins out. You don't have to smash it with a sledgehammer. Pin comes out the other side. Just going to work it out. There it is. Same grit and grime that was on the bolt. A lot of weird parts in here. Right now it's on safe. If I take it off safe, this being the hammer, if I hold down on the hammer and pull the trigger, you can see that the hammer comes up. So that would be fired at this point. Obviously it's a semi-auto, so when the bolt comes back, it locks it back into the fire position. All these little inner working parts have to stay in there. You don't want to take these apart if you're not schooled in it, or at least well versed in taking apart Benellis. I'm sure they would frown on you taking apart a trigger mechanism. But that's a lot of stuff to get cleaned out, but it's not hard as long as you got the right stuff. Toothbrush, solvent, and air compressor works wonders. Like I said, a lot of little tiny parts. Once we get scrubbing in here, we want to make sure that the spring here, if you can just barely see that, we want to make sure that stays intact. If we lock it down, just go ahead and put it back on safe so you don't pull the trigger and this come back up and whack your thumb. So we'll go ahead and scrub that up real good. Here's a before shot. G96.
That's good stuff.
Let's see what happens with that. We'll give it an overall spray, and then we'll put the tube on and see if we can scrub it a little bit.
Have you dealt much with salt water? Guns used?
I personally haven't. You probably have a little bit more experience with that than me. You find problems?
Well, just because I've actually been told that fresh water, start with fresh water, that salt doesn't actually, you can oil it all you want, but the salt kind of still stays.
Oh.
Until you actually kind of flush it or bathe it in fresh water, it doesn't really remove the remove salt.
Huh. You can hear the.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear the grinding in there. That's not a good thing. So you're saying hose it off
before you do anything to
sure.
it. If you're you've been gunning in a lot of salt water. That's
yeah.
all. That's kind of got me thinking. If that is true, I've kind of been starting to tell guys not to really even have their guns cased in the boat, because they come out in a case, which okay protects them, and that's good. But if their guns are salt,
right.
then they put those guns back in those cases,
right.
and then
right.
how's the salt get out of there?
Right, right.
I don't know why. It's just kind of dawned on me this year is that, again, if we can assume that that's true, well, I mean, I would think for a fact. Forget about whether the salt stays over the oil or not. If the gun's salty and you put it back in the case, there's salt in your case now.
Right. Just the military stuff and law enforcement weapons. If they're wet, I leave them wet. I don't put them away wet. It's the next day. There will be rust. There's no doubt about it. If you put them away, whether it's in a case or a hard case, there's a lot of hard cases out there now. With the foam and stuff like that. If you put them away wet, there will be rust. It may not be, the end of the world type rust, but there definitely will be rust on the surface, and if you miss a spot in the inside, it's going to be there. But I guess that would be the same. If you're hunting in salt water, bring them out in a case, but don't put them away.
I mean, I've sat there and watched guys that have blued guns. In a couple hours' time, their guns are actually rusting. You get a little upset.
Right, sure. Blow out these big chunks in there because they're definitely not coming out. All right, so this one's pretty good, pretty clean.
It's shiny.
It is shiny. That 96 does pretty well. So let's give it one more squirt just to get the big chunks out of here, and then we'll.
I mean, at the very least, you gotta like the way this stuff smells.
Yes. Yeah. Very nice.
Ooh, that's probably not good for my gun, is it?
No.
Probably all the work that you just did. That's probably equal to like a year's worth of regular wear and tear. Just cinder block grind falling in it.
Nice.
That was Taking a Break, sponsored by our good friends up at the Banks Boats. Let's get back to the action. Pull!